Welcome to the Intuitive Rising podcast. I'm your host, Amy Brooks. This is a podcast that invites you to remember who you are, return to yourself, and rise into your highest and best soul self. Every week, I will be sharing inspiring conversations about topics that hold keys to your awakening. My mission as an international evidential psychic medium, Reiki practitioner, and intuitive mentor is to help you rise into who you were born to be. Enjoy the show.
Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of the Intuitive Rising podcast. I am your host, Amy Brooks, and today I come on to speak to you about something that I have been maybe in the past would have been weary to talk about because of maybe fear of polarizing or judgment, maybe. But I think more so it's when I talk about something that could potentially be polarizing, I worry about like me being as and coming from a place of unbiased as much as possible. So I think the hesitancy for me is more around, am I coming from this from a place of as unbiased as possible? And so I feel as if the answer is yes. And I feel like I'm ready to talk a little bit about really what's been happening right now. I have been asked to give my opinion and to speak a little bit about some of the things that have been happening in the world, things with the government and politics. And so I have decided that I will do that because I hear and I feel the insistence from my own spirit guides and from my own higher self to do so. And so I will do that now. And that's what we'll talk about a little bit. And my intention for this episode really is to uplift and to inspire, because if you are anything like me, and you probably are if you're listening to this, then you have been feeling maybe a bit low or a bit overwhelmed, maybe some anger, maybe some dissociation, lately. And so I feel like you need to know that you are not alone. Okay. And so I want to start off briefly by talking about an experience that I had in December of 2019. So, as many of you will know, I realized that I was a medium in January of 2018 when my father passed away suddenly. And then for about a year, practiced. And then in early 2019, took the leap and launched my business and have been working professionally with clients ever since. At the end of 2019, I was recording, I feel like it was a Facebook Live. And I was recording like a 2020 kind of prediction video forecast, what I now would call an energy forecast. At the time, I feel like maybe it was a prediction video of the energy of 2020 and like what I was feeling coming in. And I did not, I'm often asked, did I predict COVID? I didn't predict COVID in the sense that I knew that there was going to be a global pandemic. But what I did pick up on was massive, massive, massive change. Okay. And so I'm going to share a little bit about what I was channeling way back when in December of 2019, and just share the visuals and things that I was picking up on. And we'll see how that relates to, this conversation as we go. And so, my intention was to kind of like say, okay, what's 2020 bringing? Like what can we expect? And what I received was something that I didn't expect. And the information that I received was very clearly stated that this isn't just for 2020. This is for all of the 20s and a little bit into the 30s. And I thought, okay, interesting. Covered with goose pimples as I say this, arm hair standing up. You can quite literally see them. And I was like, okay. And I saw the image of a road. And like a built up road. It looked like a city road. I could see tall structures on either side, fire hydrants, etc. And I kept seeing like little, almost like the best word I can use is a geyser, right? So like say like a water main breaks or something, and a little bit of water comes up through the road, and then somebody patches it down. And so there was this piece of road that they were showing me, spirit. When I say they, I mean spirit, the spirit world. This patch of road that had a lot of patches on it. You could tell that had a lot of road work on it. It had been repaired many, many, many times, but every time it kind of broke, so to speak, it would become weaker and weaker and weaker and weaker. Like the patchwork was less and less, what's the word? Effective, I guess is the right word. The actual foundation of the ground, the structure of the ground was becoming weaker and weaker and weaker with each repair, rather. And so I thought, okay, interesting. Let's keep going. I saw this huge, for lack of a better word, geyser, huge break in the ground, water coming up as high as a tall building, this like a 5-story building, water shooting up into the air. Everybody kind of scrambling. Some people were desperately trying to find things to put on top of the water, to hold it down, hold it steady, to keep it down so that, we didn't drown in a flood, so to speak. And so there was people doing that. And there's other people like just packing up their shit and getting out of Dodge, right? So there's some people holding on for dear life, trying to fix this for the umpteenth time, even though they're fighting a losing battle. And then everybody else is kind of like, see ya, we're going to higher ground. We're going to go up here at the top of this building. And so we can take this a few different ways. Okay. Number one, I was hearing a lot of words come in, like dismantling. Now, dismantling was not a word that I usually would use in my vocabulary. Might have used it if I was writing an assignment or an essay, if it made sense, but not something that I would regularly use when speaking. But I was hearing the word dismantling. I was hearing the word crumbling, foundation, restructuring, kind of coming apart. I was also given a visual of this beautiful kind of hillside. People were kind of walking around barefoot. It was a sunny, warm day. There was wildflowers and bumblebees and butterflies and dragonflies and the whole thing. And it's almost like, if you were at a beautiful day in the park and everybody's having a good time and everybody's fed and loved and, warm and safe and just the peace. It was more the feeling of collective peace that was coming in. Huge goosey bumps as I speak once again. And so I felt like I was being shown two different sides of something, like a before and after. And so what I picked up on during this channeling back in December of 2021 was that our world and the foundation of our world was going to crumble, which I know seems kind of fear-based, kind of scary to think about. And at the time, I was kind of like, I don't know what this is talking about, right? As the years went by and moved forward, and here we are now at 2025, I can see what this was talking about. Slow. It actually not slow, right? It's like in your face, punch after punch, a very obvious, offensive almost stuff over and over and over again, just hitting you in the face, like a airbag is what I'm seeing. Right, the airbag is protecting you in the grand scheme of things, but you might get a couple of black eyes as it's happening, right? As it's trying to protect you. So I saw all this, and what I was feeling with this transmission, with this channeling, was that over the course of the decade of the 2020s, and even moving a little bit into the 30s, I very much felt like the world was going to change drastically. I didn't know how at that time. I didn't know how to interpret, what does it mean that the foundation is going to crumble beneath our feet? What does it mean that we have to rebuild? What does it mean that we have to restructure? What does any of that mean? I didn't know. But I knew that when I channel from the spirit world, then, just as I do now, that I'm not given information to scare me. I'm given information to empower me. And so that's why I'm comfortable with sharing it with you, because this is meant to be empowering, because knowledge is key, awareness is key. And I hear this very, very clearly. Okay. So, what I feel about this time period in history, which, by the way, the spirit world shows me as like a pinprick in the grand scheme. It feels like a whole lot is happening. And that's because it is. We've got like hundreds of years of change happening in a 10 to 15-year period. It's all happening at once. It's seemingly happening all at once. Things have been happening and changing under the surface for years, for decades, but now we're at the peak. The geyser has broken through and there's no repairing anymore. And I think that we're becoming more and more aware that we can't repair this. We have to start anew. We have to build fresh, right? We have to, I'm kind of like seeing the image of somebody, if you say you buy a property that has an old house on it and you think that you're going to uh re like remodel it so that it's usable and livable, and then you discover, oh God, it's got earwigs and it's got I don't know what the thing is that can get in your wood where it's not very good. I think it's not earwigs. I think it's something else. Name escapes me. Anyways, it's not usable. It's not livable, right? It's worth more for you to just tear it down. So you tear down the house and you start anew. You put a new foundation down and you build brick by brick until you have a house that supports you and that is livable. And that is what this time period in history is about. So, right now, our house that's been standing for eons has a lot of problems. Okay. It is toxic. It's got black mold in it. It's got the structure is crumbling and falling down. And we are terrified because this is home. This building has been home. We don't know anything different but this home. And so the thought to start over is overwhelming and scary. And at the same time, we know that we can't live here anymore. So we have to do something. And what the spirit world tells me is that collectively, and I know this individually at a deep individual level, that this is true for me, but the spirit world tells me that individually, we as a collective are so addicted to the familiar, even if it's toxic, that in order for change to happen, substantial change to happen, we have to be shaken up a lot. We have to, we need a catalyst. We need some sort of thing to happen where we realize we cannot go back to the house. We can't live there anymore. Maybe it's that a big hurricane comes through and takes out the roof, and we're like, okay, well, now like we literally can't live here anymore. We have to rebuild. That's how we work best. And so there's been rumblings underneath the surface for hundreds of years, decades, especially in the last 50, I hear of something needs to give, something needs to give, something needs to give. And we have just been doing a lot of repair work. Our construction crew is working overtime trying to keep this road patched up, but it's weak. It's real weak. And it is no longer supportive. It's like when a sinkhole, it's a sinkhole. So what's happening right now is that we are waking up to the fact that we are sinking and that we can't live here anymore. And I'm using this symbolically. I do not mean that we can't live here on earth anymore. We can, and we will for a long time. But think about that symbolically and metaphorically. Okay. And so obviously this is a scary time. It can be, it may be, I should say, but it doesn't have to be if we think about it from the lens of awareness, of the awareness of all I just said. COVID really, like the lockdown, what that showed us in a really big way is, number one, how interconnected we are. How quickly did COVID spread between countries? Very quickly. There was no controlling it. That's because we're so connected. We're so interconnected. Okay. With travel, right? With interactions globally, how we all are dependent and reliant on each other because we all are one, even though we feel as if we're all separate, right? So that really showed us that, but it also showed us how things like the way that healthcare has been is not working. We saw the cracks in the facade in a really big way when we had a crisis, and the foundation, the healthcare, right? The structure of healthcare, the institution of healthcare could not support it. It just started to sink and sink and sink and sink, and it's still sinking, right? Things are having to be done differently. There's a lot of innovation happening right now. From the ground up is what I'm hearing when it comes to healthcare, and how we can be more supportive around healthcare, and how if something like that ever happened again, we can do better. Remember, we learn through challenge. We learn through things like that. So it's been a great opportunity in a sense of, okay, what we were working with does actually not support us at all. We have to do something different. And so now we're in that phase. We're seeing things change in not only healthcare, but in education. We're seeing things change in our financial institutions in a really big way. And definitely in our government, in our politics. Okay. So when I talk about politics, firstly, I want to say I'm trying to be as unbiased as possible. And this is not really about political party like Republican, Democrat, or here in Canada, conservative, liberal. It's not really about that I'm picking up on in a big way. It's more about this figurehead that the world is talking about right now, and that the world is either cheering on or the world is sneering at and grimacing at and afraid of and disgusted by, right? It's very polarizing the way that people feel about Donald Trump. It's one or the other. There's very little people that will be neutral about Donald Trump, especially now at this point in the game. And so what is Donald Trump's purpose? Like I don't mean his life's purpose, his soul's purpose. I mean, why is this happening? Why is he bringing in what he's bringing in? I want to address firstly that I have heard in a couple different videos, and I've heard somebody referring to somebody else in the spiritual community around talk about Donald Trump being a light worker. I think that's dangerous. I think that's dangerous to even contemplate. No, I don't think it's dangerous to contemplate. In fact, I did contemplate it. I've been sitting on that for a month, keeping my opinion to myself because I didn't want it to be an opinion. I wanted to channel. I wanted to tap into the truth of it, unbiased, out of my opinion. It goes without saying that I'm not a big fan of Donald Trump. Okay. But I cannot be a big fan of somebody and still see the purpose and still see the reason. I can still be unbiased. And my own spiritual journey has allowed me to be able to do that, including, people that have harmed and hurt me in the past in a personal way, in my personal life, in my family. I have been able to reach a point of forgiveness simply because I have a greater understanding that comes outside of emotion and is much more aligned with the truth. And so I've sat with that and sat with the truth. I do not believe Donald Trump is a light worker. No, I do not at all. I believe Donald Trump is a soul like the rest of us. We all come from the same place. We're all made of the good stuff inside. But, it's what we do with that and how we allow, our cycles and our patterns, our karma, our ancestral baggage, so to speak, and also the things that happen to us in life that really shape how we express our soul and our spirit. And so I really view Donald Trump like an avatar, like a figurehead. Remember, we are all connected, right? So I ask myself, what does Donald Trump represent us as a humanity, as a species? What does he represent? And to some, the answer will be power, justice. And to some, it will be, the worst parts of humanity, right? My view on this, my take on this, what I pick up from the spirit world, again, in an unbiased way as possible, is that he is a catalyst, though. I do believe that it's not like I feel like this is all fated to happen, and he's this light worker, this archangel coming down to earth at this time to wake everybody up. I don't feel that's the case at all. What I do feel is that for whatever reason, through his life experiences, this is a time when he's decided to really express himself in all ways. And that by doing that, it's showing us our dirtiest, deepest, darkest secrets, the parts of ourselves that we don't like, the shadow. So I believe that he is the shadow of the collective right now. I believe that he is showing us what has been lying underneath. So we are those of us that are really opposed by this, that are very upset by this. We're seeing aspects of ourselves, whether partly individual, but also as a piece of the bigger whole, piece of the puzzle. This is the shadow. This is what he is, the figurehead, the avatar, the representation of the system that we have been contributing to for eons. He is the representation of the society, the structure, the institutions that have been keeping us very, very small. I don't believe that Donald Trump is here to set us free in the way that some may. I feel like his actions, his behaviors, his opinions are very much opposing the population. And that polarization is meant to show us our shadows on either side of the coin, right? On either side of where you stand on this. So I do feel like he's taken on this role, whether he realizes it or not, to show us where we have been disempowered and to show us what's really important to us. Now, I have heard a lot of people talk about, this new timeline, new world, new age world. And I do feel like it's happening now. I don't feel like it's something that's happening in the near future. I feel like we're already on it. And I feel like we're just seeing the tail end of that particular illusion in which some walk this way and some walk this way. I think it's really important right now that you view the shadow, whatever this is bringing up for you, you view it as a mirror for what needs to change collectively and possibly individually. Okay. I think it's important that you feel inspired and empowered rather than fearful and disconnected and disempowered. I know it feels scary because everything that we have known is changing, but it's never been good. It's never been solid. It's always been weak. It's always been like, just one little earthquake away from crumbling. It's reminding me of that phrase, or that saying, not really saying, but the idea of, like, some of us are only one paycheck away from poverty, which is a truth for so many of us. It's like that's the reality. And then we think about we're only one, pandemic or away from this. We're only one election away from this. We're only one this away from this. That's the weakness in society that we have felt has been so sturdy and strong. It's never been sturdy and strong. That's the illusion that it is. And we continue to feed into it when it's not supporting us. It's not holding us up. It's pushing us down. We're sinking into the sinkhole. And so, what spirit gave me during this transmission and channeling 5 years ago, and what I'm still feeling, is that we can either be the ones that are going around finding something to cover the hole up and holding on by our fingernails, or we can start to rebuild the house. And when you're rebuilding the house, if that's your choice, you are the architect of that house. We are the architect of that house. What do we want the house to be like? How do we want it to support us? What does support mean? What is it going to look like? How is it going to feel? What's important? What are the important structures within the house that we don't want to we don't want to, I forget the word I'm looking for, but there's a word for it. Essentially, like, we don't want to not put the work in. We don't want to avoid. We want to make sure that we're giving our full attention to what are those things, what needs to be done. This is what this time period in history is for. So there's mass confusion, but it's purposeful. There's a lot of distraction. That feels purposeful. We're being distracted here, there, and everywhere to overwhelm us, to keep us small, confused, and separate. What's happening is that somebody, as we're being distracted, is building their own house. But that house is, built over the geyser. And that house is not home for you or for me. So, and because it's not home for everyone, it has to be home for everybody, not just a few. So this is the time period when we are being asked. There's been an activation. I touched on it a little bit in the March energetic forecast episode. There's right now an activation with voice, with speaking, with the throat chakra in a really big way. So even those of us who may in the past have been a little bit shy to share our opinions, a little bit meek, like, oh, don't want to rock the boat, we are starting to go, you know what? There's been a lot of holes in my boat and I'm getting the hell out of this boat. We're beginning to feel more activated, so to speak, on I have a voice and it absolutely does matter. And what I say matters and what I do matters. What I support matters. So the question now is, do you want to be a part of this new world that is empowered to build something new, to put a foundation down where the foundation is actually sturdy and supportive? It's not weak. It's not built over a geyser. Sturdy and supportive for all. It has to be that way. It can't be all separate. And that's what the world is trying to teach us in its way. That's what Mother Earth is trying to teach us. It's like, this natural disaster happens here. You don't think it affects you because it's happening there. You don't think there's a ripple effect to how it's affecting you, to the ground that you stand under right now. You don't think, because you weren't affected by COVID, that COVID hasn't affected you. It's very much the happenings that are happening right now and will continue to happen for the next 5 to 10 years. I very much feel are trying to show us just how much we need each other, just how much we are connected, and that when one is hurt, we're all hurt. When one is sick, we're all sick. And so it's time to build a new house that can house everyone. Everyone has to be considered. They really do. Everyone has to be considered because the separation of that's you and that's you and that's yours and that's mine has made us sick. Oh, I feel emotional, but it's made us sick. And I know that to be true. So, what can we do now? I know it sounds cheesy and cliche. It starts with you, it starts in your home, in your family, in your town, in your community, in your city, in your organizations. It starts there. There's a tendency for those of us who are light workers. Light worker simply is someone whose part of their soul's mission is to share light, to bring light in. Light is information, it's knowledge, it's, the all-knowing truth from the universe, right? From the consciousness, universal consciousness. It's light workers are people that have been infused with that and come to share it through any means that they choose, whether they are public speakers, business people, doctors, nurses, whether they are business owners, psychic mediums, whether they are gas station attendants, whether they are musicians. It doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. They're infused with the light of universal consciousness, and they spread that wherever they go. And so they're way showers. They're change makers. The tendency for light workers is that, and I could say this as a personal experience of a light worker, is that we come with all that fiery intention and all that light to share and all that wisdom. But then we come here and the world that we have lived in hasn't supported it because it's wanted us to stand in line and to fit in our cubicle, so to speak. And there's a lot of conformity and there's a lot of fear in this world, and there has been. And so we're fearful of sharing. We're fearful of speaking. We're fearful of sharing the light, but it's there. And it always has been. And so right now you may be feeling a bit activated. Okay. Maybe you're feeling a little bit more passionate about these things. Maybe you want to talk about them. You never would have talked about them before. And now you're on your soapbox. Good for you. It starts with you. It starts small. So it's like, how can you become more aware of your shadow in your own life? As a person, an individual making decisions for yourself, making decisions for a family, children, how can you overcome and become more aware of the conditioning that you have received from your family, from your community, from your society, from your culture? How can you overcome I keep hearing the word culling, which is very interesting. It's like when you cull something, when you round it up, right? How can you overcome that? What can you do? Well, maybe you start to make your own healing a priority. Maybe you start to listen to your inner voice a little bit more and you make decisions based on it, not what you think you should do, but what you know you should do. It's that simple. Maybe it's like you choosing to parent your children differently than you have been parented because you know different or more. When you know better, you do better, kind of thing. Maybe you are feeling called to organize community, to come together, to share with others, to share your time, to share your expertise. There is a call for you to drop the shields. What the powers that be have preyed upon for many, many, many eons is keeping us separate, because separate we are much weaker. If we all come together if we can see through the facade, if we can see through the illusion of what's happening, if we can move through the distraction of what's happening and have the awareness of what's happening and how and feel inspired about building this new house that serves us all, think about how much that's going to shift and change things. So look at your own prejudices about yourself, about other people, about how you have kept yourself small, about how you have kept another small, about how you have harmed another. Have forgiveness for yourself, have forgiveness for others. When you know better, you do better. It's not a time to point fingers, but it's a time to do better. It's a time to show up. It's a time to rebuild. So make sure as you're rebuilding that you're thinking about how this serves us all. I keep hearing, to treat, that old adage that we should treat others as we ourselves would like to be treated. And that is such a basic truth that has been forgotten. There's no picking and choosing here. Like, oh, well, I'll live by that rule if, you look like this or you act like this or you come from here. No, it has to be for all because you are connected to every single person and every single person is connected to you. So when one is sick, everyone's sick. Oh, I'm going to do a card pull. I feel like that image that I saw, when it spanned out from the city and from the geyser and the road. And then I saw this beautiful park-like image, wildflowers and insects and got a card here for us. Birds and people walking barefoot and everybody happy and fed and safe and free. I feel like that is the new earth. I feel like that's what we could have. The earth wants to provide that for us, not just for some, for everyone. And we need much less than we think we do. Much less than we think we do. Think about the earth as well as a living, breathing organism, a living being, part of your kin. And be good to it as well. Know that it's a sentient being. I think those hippies were onto something. I don't know about you. I always joke that I'm a reincarnated hippie and I believe it, but I also believe that they were onto something. Everything's alive, everything's breathing. Okay, let's read your card. Okay, it comes from the 22 Archangel Oracle by Kyle Gray, and it is Michael. Look at that. Oh, look at the blue. Okay, blue throat chakra. And also I see the light around him, but also kind of coming down through his third eye and right into his throat. See all that light? If you're on YouTube, you'll be able to see this card. If not, I'm holding up a card that has Michael on it. He has dark skin and dark hair. And he has blue and yellow around him. And there's this like blue beam of light going straight through his top of his head, through his third eye, down through his neck, and then into his, all down his chakras. But there's a lot of throat chakra energy in there, and then also the color. So let's read what Michael has to say for us before I leave you today. I do hope this has inspired you or has, made you feel a little less overwhelmed. Okay. We have more control than we think. We really and truly do. We feel powerless. We feel like things are out of our control, but they're not. Because, and this is something that came through in that channeling from 2019. And it's a perfect thing to end this with before I move to the card. And it was everything that has, everything that is, and everything that ever will be is because somebody created it. Somebody thought of it and they did it. So this whole, the structures, the foundations were created. They were dreamt up and then they were created. And then we got pulled into this illusion And this created our reality. But if we could do that, then why couldn't we also dream up and create something new? I watched a YouTube video many years ago where there was a lady, I don't remember her name, but she was like a 98-year-old British lady, spiritual lady. She's since made her transition into the spirit world. And I remember her talking about how this is all a dream. You know, I don't remember all of what she talked about, but one of the things she said was, wake up, dreamers. We just have to dream a new dream. We have to dream a new dream. And she gave examples of things like over the course of time, how part of the dream before may have been, you know, a shared reality, the dream of things like slavery. And then enough people changed the dream to eradicate that. And then that dream was over. And then there was a new dream where slavery was not a thing, where it was not common, was illegal, right? And then we think about things like, even things like say smoking, right? Or like I'm thinking about when people used to smoke in school and smoke in hospitals. I remember my mom saying when I was born, it was in like an ashtray in the room, the recovery room, because people used to smoke everywhere, right? There was a dream where like, oh, this is what we do. And then enough people changed the dream to where it's like, that's not acceptable. We're not going to do that. So it's just about dreaming a new dream right now. And if enough people dream a new dream, the dream will occur. It just will. It will just transition and move into it. And I keep seeing like an acceleration, like a spiral, just moving into it gradually. And it does happen gradually. And that's where we get frustrated because we feel like it's not happening fast enough, but it is. There's a lot of movement. So just wake up, dream a new dream, dream a dream, dream the dream. It starts in your home, in your community, in your life. Eventually it will trickle out. It will become a shared reality. That is the new earth. Okay, let's see what Michael has to say. Michael, he who is like God is considered to be the Prince of Light. I love this because we've been talking about light. The chief of the angelic realm. He is a powerful force who has been venerated as a saint and is known as the protector of those working in services such as the police, the special forces, and the fire brigade. Brigade, yeah, that's no. Brigade, there we go. The divine counterpart of faith. He is an angel of justice and comes to everyone who wants to make a difference here on earth. Often portrayed carrying a sword or a spear, Michael is also the presence we can invoke whenever we are feeling fearful or constrained. He will cut through the ties of fear and he will liberate us. Michael, we need that now. We need that. Oh, that's a sword. That's a sword of light that goes right there. There we go. Your message. All the roadblocks you have been facing are tumbling down. Listen to that language, tumbling down. Angels are giving you the go ahead. Now is the time. Move forward in the knowledge that the divine is opening the way to experiences, opportunities, and connections that will help you live with purpose and live on purpose. With all that's happening, it's important to stay rooted in your spiritual practice and connection with the divine, because this loving presence is the reason you are who you are today. In the speed of it all, take the time to pause, reflect, and be grateful for where you are today. This energy of acceleration will not only catapult you into opportunities and experiences that will carry you towards success and achievement, but also take you beyond some of the people and places you once felt at home with. Oh, my arm hairs are standing up because of that language is so repetitive to what I channeled a little bit ago. The people and places that you once felt at home with. Right? That familiar, but that like sick home, that toxic home that no longer can be remedied, right? It's got to be torn down. Be mindful of what's familiar and ask yourself if that familiarity is if you've outgrown it, right? If it's actually toxic familiarity. if it actually is safe, if it actually is accelerating and safe and keeps, it makes you feel progressive and makes you feel whole, or if it keeps you stuck, if it's just that kind of icky familiarity. Be mindful of that, be able to see through that. That's what I'm hearing very clearly. There's a good chance that some people will feel left behind or unseen. So be aware that they will require tenderness and consideration. So I feel like that's a nod to this image of these two paths that I'm seeing, right? There's some people that are going to hold on desperately, and there's some people who are like, nope, we're getting at a dodge, right? We're rebuilding a new house over here on this beautiful hillside because we've been trying to rebuild on a swamp and it's a sinkhole. And so the people that stay behind also require love and tenderness and forgiveness. And so be weary of judgment. Be mindful of judgment of yourself and of other people. This is the hardest work that you will do. This is the hardest work that I'm currently doing, is suspending and dissolving feelings of judgment towards people that don't and aren't seeing the same thing. That's a human thing. It's like, I see this as truth, therefore this is true. And those of you who feel this is truth, it just means that we're aligned. We're aligned on the same energetic frequency. And so we're dreaming a new dream. As those people that are dreaming another dream that is, more in let's repair the geyser. And that's okay. And that's their journey. And they deserve love and tenderness as well. And that's just another version of us, right? That's just a mirror of the parts of us that are afraid to move forward, afraid to move. And so I just feel like that's a huge lesson right now, a huge lesson that is very hard. The ultimate key to growth is to never forget who you really are and where you have come from as you go further and reach higher. Oh, what a lovely way to end the episode. Okay, well, I hope you've enjoyed this. I hope it has made your heart feel a little bit less heavy. The greatest lie that has ever been told is that we are alone. We are not alone. We never have been alone. We've all been connected all the time. I'm seeing the image of like the earth and almost like an octopus. And the octopus, the body part of the octopus is on the top of the earth. And then all its tentacles are underneath the surface and they're stretched out all the way around the earth. And it's all like connected and touching. So even though the top, what we see, we think is separate, it's all touching. All the roots are growing together underneath. So yeah, we're never alone. We're never separate. That's the greatest lie that we've ever been told. And the truth in it is that when we realize that and we start to make decisions and form opinions and dream new dreams that keep that in mind, but that's like the very foundation of everything, is that we're all connected. Then we move into this new earth, this new world energy that's already here right now. We can step into it more fully. So share your voice, express yourself. Don't be afraid. Speak your voice speak your message even when your voice shakes. And I hear the truth will set you free. And will it ever? The truth will set you free. Have a wonderful one. Lots of love to you.
If you have enjoyed this episode, please consider hopping on over to wherever you listen to your podcast and giving it a 5-star review. Thank you so much in advance. If you'd like to keep in touch, please head over to my website, theintuitiverising.com, to keep up with all the things that I have been doing. I also have a private Facebook community for people just like you. It's called the Intuitive Rising Community. All you gotta do is request to join and I will let you in. Keep rising.